Hi there, my name is Charlene and I am doing a tutorial video for my Upcycle bags. This one is an Upcycle bag with what I call a rectangle base like this one. I'm just going to start with how you make the bottom and then you work up from the top. My page on Facebook is called Hooked by Charlene, and I also have an Etsy page if you don't want to make your own and you just want to buy one. So take a look at my Etsy page, Hooked by Charlene, or my Facebook page, Hooked by Charlene. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start with a regular loop. If you already know how to crochet, you should know how to do this, but just make a cross over here, stick your needle through, and then you're just going to pull this through that loop and make a loop on your hook. And then we're going to chain 25. So I will do that. "20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. So this just starts off with these 25 chains, and then what we're going to do is we're going to work single crochets around both sides of this chain, so that we'll be working in the round for the whole bag. I'm going to be using these stitch markers that it'll get a little bit crazy with the stitch markers because we're going to be increasing the bag at the corners, so we'll need a stitch marker in each of the 4 corners. And to start out with, it'll look a little silly because they will be very close together, and you need that to start because it's going to work out from the middle. So as you can see on this one, this right here is where it starts with the 24 chains plus 1 to start your single crochets around. So I'll move this back off to the side and we'll start with our single crochets. If you don't know what a single crochet is, I will show you a little bit slower. So what you're going to do is stick your hook through this little loop here and then grab your plastic yarn and pull it through, and then you'll put yarn over and pull this through both of these loops here, and then you'll go on to the next one, put your hook through, pull this loop through, and then pull a loop through both of those 2 loops, and then you just continue down the chain in the same way. And I'm going to pause the video until we get a little bit further. Okay, so as you can see, I've gotten a little bit further down my chain and I only have a couple left here. So I'm going to go ahead and finish here down this side of the first side of the chain of 24 that we started with. And that one's going to be a little bit of a bugger because there's a tie and a knot there. Alright, and we're down to the last 2 here, and on the last one we're going to actually do 3 single crochets in the last stitch. And when we do that, we're actually going to put a stitch marker in the first one and in the third one. So that's the first one. I'm going to place a stitch marker here. And then this is the second one. And this is the third one. So we're going to place a stitch marker on this third one here. And those are going to mark our corners. So our corners are going to get bigger and bigger and be on the outside as we go along. So what we're going to do with this little tail is actually crochet that through this so that we don't have to use a yarn needle or anything to tuck it in later. We're just going to tuck it in now. So now we're going to crochet all the way down to the next one, and there's that. And again, we are going in around this little tail and grabbing that, pulling it through, and then pulling these through too. So just so that you can see that a little bit closer, we're going to go in right here, pull through this loop, and then while still going around that little tail, we're going to pull that through this way, and then keep going. And again, I'm going to pause the video so that you don't have to be with me through this longer section. Alright, so now you can see that I am almost at the end here, and I'm just going to crochet these last couple with you. Now, I didn't have really a written pattern for this, and you can definitely make bags out of yarn using the same instructions that I'm giving you now. So feel free to take this tutorial and use just regular yarn. Oh, and I'm using a 6.5 millimeter crochet hook. I didn't tell you that in the beginning, but it is helpful to know. You can use larger ones or smaller ones. It'll give you a tighter hole if you're using a smaller one, and it's not ideal because it's really hard to pull through. And then I've used all the way up to an 8 millimeter hook, which gives you kind of a looser look to it and feel to it, but I didn't personally like that it was a lot stretchier. So through a lot of trial and error, this has become the hook that I use for everything, and I really like the effect that it gives and the strength of the bags and everything like that. So in this last loop here that doesn't, it's really kind of hard to see that it's the last one, but we already have our first chain through there, our first single crochet through there, and we're just going to put 2 more in, and the first one is going to get a stitch marker, and then the second one is going to get a stitch marker as well. Oh, let me just clip that. I'm sorry, the second one's not going to get a stitch marker. The third one, which is actually our first single crochet, is going to get a stitch marker there because these are going to be the corners on this side. So I am just going to tell myself to remember that my orange stitch marker is my very first stitch from now on, because once we're done with the base, the only stitch marker that I'm going to use is my first one. So on this bag, that is the way that functions. So my very first one here is actually my first stitch when I first started my single crochets. So you'll see that as we go along. I didn't have to put that in right now because I'm about to put 3 crochets, 3 single stitches in this one stitch. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 single crochets in the same stitch. And because this is my corner, it's also called an increase, I'm going to put my stitch marker in the middle one. So it'll be the second one in that first stitch. And then I'm going to crochet down until I get to my blue stitch marker, and then I'll put 3 single crochets in that blue stitch marker. So I'll start here, and then I'll pause the video so that I can get back down to that blue stitch marker. Okay, we are almost down now to my blue stitch marker. So I'm going to finish these last 3 stitches, and then we're going to crochet 3 single crochets where the blue stitch marker is, and then we'll do the single crochet that's in between and 3 single crochets in where the purple stitch marker is. So we'll take that out and put 3 single crochets in this one stitch. And we're going to put the blue stitch marker back in the middle one. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then this goes right in here. And then we've got 1 stitch in between these two. And then we'll put 3 single crochets where the purple stitch marker is. 1, 2, 3, and then again we will put the purple stitch marker in the middle one, and we will continue to work down this side until we get to the pink stitch marker. Alright, so we're a couple stitches away again from the pink stitch marker, and we're going to work that exactly how we did on the other end with the blue and purple stitch markers. I'm just going to get to that pink one, and then we'll put 3 single crochets in where that pink stitch marker is. We'll take that out. And then put 3 in here. And then on this end, we're actually going to have 2 stitches between, because we already started our 3 stitches in this one on the last round. So as we're doing these corners, we are increasing by 2 stitches in each corner. So we're going to start seeing more and more stitches in between the corner stitches. So now on this orange one, we are going to do 3 stitches again. 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to put the orange stitch marker in the middle stitch again, and then continue down the side, and I'm going to put a couple stitches in and then show you what it looks like. So it'll look a little bit wonky for a little bit because we're working out corners. So right now you're starting to see those corners. The side with the first stitch is always going to be a little bit weirder because it looks like it's bigger all the time than the other ones, but you'll see it's starting to form a little rectangle. This edge is a little bit more squared off than this edge, but it will not really matter as you keep going. As you can see with this one, you can kind of start to see it form a little boat, but it is in like a rectangle, like a soft rectangle, because it's a little bit, but it's a little bit soft on the corners because it's not going to be tight corners like a rectangle would be. But I will show another tutorial video after this one that will do an oval instead, but it won't have like a flat base like this. So the oval ones have a tendency to be softer, and I like those ones, but they turn out more like flat totes. And for these ones, I wanted something that had more of a flat base so that you could stand your bag up instead of having it lay flat. I like both patterns a lot, but they're very different. So this one, I'm going to continue working for about 8 rounds. You can go bigger, you can go smaller, but 8 rounds is about what I did for this one, for the base on the bottom. And then we'll just start working up. So I'm going to pause the video for a little bit and get a couple more rounds on, and I'll be back. So I said that I was going to come back in a couple rounds, but I actually only did 1, and it was because I wanted to come back and show you that sometimes if something looks a little bit wonky, it is totally okay for you to kind of fix it. It doesn't always look exactly the way that you think that it will, You can see this corner like looks a little bit rounded, and to me, I think that it's because this pink one might be just in the wrong place. So I'm actually going to move the corner. So this one, the pink stitch marker is in the middle one like it's supposed to be, but I think that I'm going to move the corner to this one instead, because I think that it'll kind of straighten it out a little bit so that this end will match the blue and purple end a little bit better. Sometimes that happens, and you can't be afraid to just make little adjustments if you don't think something's turning out quite right. I learned that just through trial and error, as I've been crocheting in my life, really. I've been crocheting for most of my life. I started when I was young, and then when I was in my 20s, I really put a lot of effort into figuring out how to follow patterns and sometimes how to kind of go my own way, because with any crafting, you have to figure out how things work for you, because there's no rules really to how to do these things. You have to figure out how things look best and what works for you. I don't hold my work like a lot of people do, but just moving that corner, I think, kind of made this balance a little bit better. And I think even with the next round, it'll be even better to straighten out that corner and just look a little bit more square. So don't be afraid to make adjustments if things don't look right, or you can change your hook size, or just play around with it. Don't be afraid. Don't think there's any rules or you have to follow my instructions exactly. Just have fun with it and figure out your own way. So I'm going to pause this again and I'll come back in a couple rounds. Okay, as you can see, it's getting a little wider. I think that it was a good idea to move that corner for the pink one, because this is looking a little bit better on this side and everything is looking square. I have a couple more rounds to go for the base, but I am going to finish this video here, and on the next one I will show you how we begin to go up the sides, because for a little while it kind of stays flat and I want to make sure that you don't think that you're doing anything wrong, and it's easier if you can kind of see how that comes together, because it'll be a little bit flat before it actually starts standing up on the sides. But this is just going to take a couple more rounds. Right now I am currently here at my orange one again at the beginning. So I've gone 5 rounds right now. I'm going to do 7 or 8 rounds. I haven't really decided yet. This one, so this looks like this in here. I believe that this one was 8 rounds, so you'll see on the flat bottom that I've got 1, 2, 3 more rounds to go to get to the same size as this flat bottom here. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do to have around the same size. And then I already actually have a strap for the one that I'm doing. I'm going to be attaching this yarn strap, and I'm going to do a tutorial on that at some point also, because for this strap I actually did 3 strands of different colored yarn, because I wanted it to be red, white, and blue, and I didn't have a red, white, and blue yarn to use. So I also like a thicker strap, so that's why I used 3 strands. Sometimes I'll use a bulky yarn for the strap, but I want it to be extra strong and not super stretchy, so that's why I use thicker yarns for that. But I hope you enjoyed this part of the tutorial and that you'll be around for the next one. Thank you.